Welcome everybody to a brand new series here on this channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Stumpy, and today we embark on a new journey here on Madden 25, which just came out. We are taking over the Denver Broncos here in this long-term rebuild. Taking over as head coach in place of Payton is head coach Daniel Levy, a player from my former Los Angeles Rams rebuild back on Madden 24. If you want to go watch that, go ahead and go look back. And he was one of the main playmakers of that entire series and that entire dynasty. We take over the Broncos as one of the worst overall rosters in the entire league. Only like one or two real star players at this point with Patrick Surtain and Quinn Maynard's. Nobody else has really been like a standout player aside from the aging veteran Garrett Bowles. And overall, this team has been one of the worst teams in the last couple of years. Obviously, they had Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach, and they were an absolutely terrible team overall. Their defense has been decent, but the big storyline going into this first year is going to be their rookie quarterback taken in the first round at pick 17, Bo Nix out of Oregon at 24 years old. He comes in with a hidden development depth chart. I have no idea what this depth chart actually is. We'll just find out as we progress through this first season. But he is going to be the kind of face of the franchise along with Pat Surtain to open this series. He's got below 90 throw power, accuracies, not great, but not bad. Decent throw on the run, decent throw under pressure. 84 speed, but he has more of a balanced quarterback style, so he won't really get outside the pocket too much. He has the throwaway trait, trigger-happy sense of pressure, conservative decision-maker, and he's got a tight spiral. Much of the first year is going to be trying to determine whether or not he is going to be the future quarterback for this team as a long-term option. And, right now his motivations don't really line up with him being the option after his rookie deal is up, because the impacts are all going the opposite way of what you would want your quarterback of the future to have under those tags. This offense also has Zach Wilson behind Bo Nix. Obviously, he spent several years over with the Jets and really never performed well. Had a couple of maybe highlight plays, but for the most part, did not live up to the hype around him as a first-round pick really at all. He threw so many interceptions, made bad reads, but also had a pretty bad offense around him too. But is he a possible option for us at quarterback? I think he's got 1 year left on his deal, so probably not. At receiver, the Broncos have longtime Bronco Courtland Sutton. He's going to be the main target for whichever quarterback ends up being the future starter in this series. He's got a 84 overall. He's only 28 years old and has 91 speed. Just a pretty good overall receiver. His route running's not too shabby. He's got 95 spec catch, and he's got 93 jumping as well. Nothing stands out in a negative way for him, so he's going to be a big part of this offense in these first couple of years for sure. But they also drafted in the 4th round Troy Franklin, the former teammate and now current teammate of Bo Nix. They both played at Oregon, and he comes with 92 speed. Route running is actually in a pretty good starting place compared to most rookie wide receivers. He's got the possession catch trait, the run after catch, and fights for yards, but he will never cover the ball, and he does drop passes. So there are some things to leave a couple of question marks about in terms of if he's going to be good enough to be a future starter for this team, because right now he's not. He's going to be the 4th or 5th on the step chart for sure. At running back, Denver has one of the, most exciting young running backs in the last couple of years in Javonte Williams. He had a lot of hype building around him because of how he's played the first couple of years. Has had some injury concerns, but mostly has been fairly healthy. And, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's going to be getting the ball quite a bit with these young quarterbacks on this team. And he's going to play behind decent offensive line with Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles, both pretty veteran tackles at this point, plus young player Quinn Maynard's at right guard, who's the 2nd highest rated player on this roster. And then obviously, you cannot forget about the biggest player on this team, the franchise guy here on defense, Pat Surtain II, who is easily this team's best defender, the 96 overall X-Factor depth trait, He's only 24 years old, so he's yet to get a contract extension for the future, but he's got really good man-in-zone coverage. He's a fast guy. He can pick people off. He's got 99 play rec. This guy is going to be hopefully on this team for many years to come. And to be honest, outside of Patrick Surtain, this defense is kind of in a pretty strange place. It's not a good defense. You can look back at a couple of games last year where they gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins and lost by 50 in that game. They also gave up 42 against the Detroit Lions, who, I mean, they were a good offense last year, sure, but to give up 42 points to Jared Goff is definitely not a good look. And nobody is over 30 years old. The only guy at 30 years old is actually Alex Singleton. So you have guys that haven't quite reached the age of regression for most defensive positions, but nobody is over an 80 overall or even at an 80 overall besides Patrick Surtain, who is easily the best player on this entire defensive front. Like this entire defensive roster is really bad compared to him. Got a couple of guys like in their mid-20s like Baron Browning, Caden Stearns, and Brandon Jones. But DJ Jones, Levi Wallace, both approaching 30 years old. And then you have guys that have not really proven themselves on previous teams. Like, for example, John Franklin Myers, now 6 years in the league, and he previously played for the New York Jets, but he never really stood out, never really made a name for himself, never really got to where the Jets thought that he could be as a pass rusher. And he's coming off a year where he only had 3.5 sacks in New York, and now he's over here in Denver as a starter, and I doubt he's going to be that impactful here in this first year. So this defense has a lot of holes to patch up, and it's pretty much every spot besides corner. But even then, outside of Levi Wallace and Surtain, you have a pretty steep drop-off at your number 3 corner when you've got Damari Mathis, who's 25 years old, as a 71 overall player, and he's your 3rd best corner on the team. And he's not really good at man coverage or zone coverage. Nothing really stands out for him besides the speed and the jumping. So there are a lot of things to patch up on this defense, and until we can fix this defense, this team probably won't be competing for a title anytime soon, much less an AFC West title, because you obviously have the Chiefs in this division, and that is a very tough team to overcome when they've got Patrick Mahomes and a couple of great defenders like Chris Jones. So this defense is going to be one of the biggest focuses in the first couple years in terms of free agent signings and drafting new talent to replace these guys that haven't, yet reached their 30s, but are probably going to soon and probably won't even reach a true peak in their careers while they're here in Denver. I think one more focal point of this entire team is going to have to be the offensive line, because right now, it seems pretty solid. You've got Garrett Bowles at left tackle. You've got Quinn Maynertz, hopefully I'm not butchering that pronunciation, at right guard. He's only 25 years old. Then you have Mike McGlinchey at right tackle, who's pretty solid. Not great, not terrible. But then you have Mustipher and Ben Powers, both of them I think really got to be replaced within a couple of seasons, because they're just not very good. They won't really progress much from here on out. And he's only a 70 overall. Powers at like a 75 with a skill point available. But Garrett Bowles is 32 years old, so he's probably going to retire here once this year is over or the year after that. So he's probably going to be gone. Going to have to find a left tackle replacement for him. And then McGlinchey is also going to be 30 years old by the time this year is all said and done. So you're thinking about replacing your tackles, which leaves pretty much Quinn Maynertz as your only good offensive lineman. And that's not going to be good for protection for a quarterback like Bo Nix, who has a balanced quarterback style and probably won't scramble outside of the pocket too much. So that also won't be good for the run blocking either, because you got Javonte Williams, who has yet to get a second contract. And if we want to get him to have a breakout year, like a true breakout year, then you have to beef up this offensive line. And until it gets better beyond this year, it's probably not going to be good enough to where our running backs can break off big runs and get past the offensive line with ease, unless they themselves are doing all the work. So The offensive line and this defense as a whole are two of the big focuses, I think, for the future of this team and this rebuild. Let's talk about this team's most recent draft class. Their first pick after Bo Nix came in the 3rd round at 76 overall with Jonah Ellis, an outside linebacker with more of a pass-rushing linebacker style. Nothing right now really stands out except the fact that his power and finesse moves and blocks are all in a pretty similar area, so if we can develop him pretty well, in a couple of years he could be a really well-rounded starter on this defense, but I don't expect him to start at all this year. He probably won't get that much playing time here in his rookie season. And the same can be said for 5th-round pick Chris Abrams-Drain. Hopefully I'm not butchering that pronunciation. He comes in with 91 speed, 94 acceleration, and honestly, I do like where his coverage skills are at right now. They're actually not bad one way or the other, and if we can develop him well like Ellis, then he could be a pretty solid starter both in man and zone coverage in, 1 or 2 seasons as a starter, because the secondary right now is not that deep. At running back, they also took in the 5th round at pick 147, Audric Estime, who will probably be cut and make the practice squad, I would probably assume, behind 3 other pretty solid running back options on this offense already. He's not very fast, he's kind of agile, but, nothing is really standing out just like the last couple of guys. There's no real one trait or one attribute that is going to blow you away or anything, but I do think that he could be an option for us in the future at running back. Probably as like a backup option for the most part, but I think he's going to make the practice squad to start this season. And then, for some reason, not really sure why, the Broncos also took 26-year-old Devon Villay. He's 26 as a rookie. You do not see that very often these days. He was taken in round 7, and he's probably not going to make the roster at a 66 overall. He's got 90 speed, 90 acceleration, but I just don't really know about this pick a whole lot. And their last pick of the draft was backup left guard Nick Gargiulo. Hopefully I'm not butchering that either, but he's got 87 strength. His finesse and power skills are pretty balanced, which is a good thing for his future development, but he definitely won't be a starter for several years at this point. And because this team is pretty bad, I do expect this team to have probably a top 10 pick, and thankfully we do have the first 4 picks in this next draft, but they did give away their 5th and their 7th round pick for, I'm not really sure who, but we don't have 2 picks in this next draft. We might want to make a trade here to boost up this draft capital going into the 2025 NFL draft. That will take us to the team history. This team has not had a winning record since 2016, and they have not won this division since the year before that, when they still had Peyton Manning as the quarterback before he retired. They've had several head coaches since then, with Gary Kubiak, Vance Joseph, and Vic Fangio, then obviously Hackett and whoever came in as his interim head coach, and then Sean Payton after that, and now us here in 2024. So that makes us the 7th head coach in about as many seasons. And frankly put, it's been mostly an offensive issue for this team. They have cycled through quarterback after quarterback. They brought in Russell Wilson for a couple of really awful offensive seasons. I mean, last year they were better than when Hackett was the head coach. But when Hackett was the head coach, this offense was one of the biggest eyesores across the entire football landscape. I mean, they were absolutely terrible. The defense has been decent to surprisingly pretty good in a couple of these years, mainly because they brought in Pat Surtain as this new franchise face on defense. But there is obviously still a whole lot more work left to do to get this team back into AFC West contention, to battle with the Chiefs for this division lead, and to get this team back to where they were when Peyton Manning was the quarterback. Will Bo Nix get us there? I'm not so sure. If you're not familiar with my style or my channel, then here's a pretty important thing to know. I don't do things as most content creators do here in Madden 25 or in franchise. How I do things is CPU versus CPU, where you watch your team play in a broadcast style and you watch the team that you have put together play against opponents. And typically I'll do this on the all-pro default slider, so that's what I'm going to start with here. And if I want to change anything, then I can, but usually All Pro is a pretty good balanced approach. You get a pretty authentic sim style experience, and it seems, pretty close to real life in terms of play style and how plays develop and how teams develop. And if you want to stick around and see more, then please do consider liking this video and subscribing and leaving feedback down below on what you want to see in the future of this series. Now for XP sliders, I'm not really sure where to begin because I don't think there's been enough time for people to do some testing, but I'm also not sure if EA has even tweaked this from Madden 24, where I did use custom XP sliders because they had messed things up on the default, which is what I'm currently on. But I think we'll start with the default settings, and then if things don't look right after a year or two, or if people come out with better XP slider sets, then I will instead use those. But we're going to start out with just the 100 flat across the board. So in terms of team salaries, this team could look a lot different by year 3, because as of right now, half of the 72 players on the current preseason roster are on the last year of their current deal or only have 1 year on their deal in total. That is a lot of players. That is 36 in total of 72. And Garrett Bowles is one of those players. He's got a $20 million cap here in 2024. And next year, he has no more years on his deal on this 5-year contract. Courtland Sutton's deal is going to be up after 2025. And DJ Jones on a defensive front is going to be probably gone after this year as well. The guy that's going to be making the most money after this first year is going to be Mike McGlinchey, who is on a pretty big extension. He'll be 33 by the time this deal is all up, so might want to consider trading him in a couple of years if he hits some regression, because he is only like an 80 overall and probably won't progress a whole lot now that he's 29 years old. We'll have to see if he plays well enough to, be kept on this contract, but with a big cap hit starting next year, I'm not so sure it's the best 14 that's going to be in a rebuild for a couple more seasons. After that, you got Zach Allen, who has a pretty big $12 million increase going into 2025. Same goes for Patrick Surtain, up to $19.8 million. We talked about Courtland Sutton's deal. Ben Powers, our left guard, who's not even very good and is 27 years old, also has a pretty big increase to his contract after this first season. So you have guys that are going to be making more money next year and will probably not be a whole lot better than they are in this current season. So there are definitely options to trade away, especially once we reach the draft and talk about guys that could come into play as starters as younger players and potentially rookies. So there are a whole host of options for us to think about as we approach this first off season, and I think there's going to be plenty of trades to be made for draft picks, especially with those older guys we just talked about. We'll probably have a new punter, given that Riley Dixon is on the last year of his current 2-year contract. The same goes for Tim Patrick, who is currently a 78 overall, but is 30 years old and will be 31 by 2025 on the last year of his deal. Same goes for Cody Barton, who I think we probably should bring back because he's not making too much money right now. And I think he probably won't want that much more than he's currently making. And he's been probably the second best defender on this team behind Surtain, so he could be an option to bring back for sure, I think, at 27 years old. Samaje Perine is also one of those upcoming free agents, and so is Javonte Williams, but he's going to get a new contract if he can play anywhere close to how he did these last couple of seasons for sure. And then the same goes for Quinn May-Nertz, who is on the last year of his rookie contract. He also will probably get a pretty sizable extension, I think. So there are guys to stick around and keep around, but there are guys like Garrett Bowles who probably will have to head somewhere else because we probably want as much cap room as possible going into this stage of this rebuild for sure. There are new storylines in this game, but from what I've seen, they aren't really that great. They don't really make too much sense. They just seem kind of half-assed, and in my opinion. Which step would determine the winner of the battle between John Franklin Myers and whoever that last guy was? There's probably not going to be a battle. I'm just going to start John Franklin Myers and see if he can be like a 6 7-sack starter for us. But apparently that's going to lose some trust for the guy that was going to fight for that job. But he's like a 68 overall or something. I'm not sure that really deserves to be a battle at all. Morale drops by 10. Great. To be honest, I probably plan on skipping most of those storylines because they just don't seem interesting or even good at all. So probably going to skip most of those. And in year 1, I do plan to only spend like 4 to 5 episodes, I think, going through the entire first year. And then after that, we'll, go at a slower pace as we try to learn more about this team. But in preseason, we end up with 3 picks and no touchdowns thrown for Bo Nix, 48% completion percentage, 12 for 25 passing. Zach Wilson got most of the playing time with 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 26 for 49 passing. But the ratings for both not very good. And nobody in the backfield played well at all. 3.4 per carry was the highest, and that was for Samaje Perine. We had 3.3 for Devontae Williams. I have not yet changed our offensive playbook, so I probably will eventually, but we're going to start out with the Denver one and see if we get anything good there while watching games. But it appears that, and simming at least here in the first couple of preseason games, that the ground game needs plenty of work, and that might have to do with the offensive line like I talked about earlier. Passing-wise, Philip Dorsett had the most receiving yards, followed by Marvin Mims Jr. and Adam Troutman, our backup tight end, who might win that starting job over Greg Dulcich, who really knows for sure. On defense, we got 22 tackles for Alex Singleton, 14 for Zach Allen. We had a couple tackles for loss for Singleton, Allen, Jones, and Matt Henningsen, who we kind of scoffed at as a potential starter at left end over John Franklin Myers. We only had 4.5 total sacks, or 4 total sacks at all, and 2 of those came from John Franklin Myers. We had no interceptions, and we had no fumbles recovered, so no turnovers forced at all in the preseason. And Will Lutz ends up going 2 for 2 on field goals and 8 for 8 on PATs. At least there's some positives here. I ended up cutting about 19 players from the roster, and I sent a couple of rookies to the practice squad. And that includes wide receiver Devon Villay, who is like 26 years old. And I also sent Audrey Estime as well to the practice squad too. Hopefully he can stay there and not get poached, because I do think that after this year, he probably will become our 3rd running back on this depth chart. We have the first upgrade point for Bo Nix, and I think I want to use this on just the accuracies, because I think, that plus the throw power needs work. So we're going to use it on field general first, and then probably use it on strong arm afterwards. On this upgrade, we get +1 awareness, play action, accuracy deep and short, and throw under pressure. I'll take it. And for his former and current teammate from Oregon, Troy Franklin, I think I want to use this. I wish I could focus on the route running here, but I probably can't. I do want to work on that release, though. And we could probably go with deep threats to get that up, or physical. I think I'll do physical first and get the catch in traffic and spec catch up if possible. And we get +2 release, +1 short route, and +1 awareness too. That's not bad. We do have a pretty early preview on the upcoming draft class this year, and it looks like there's 4 offensive tackles in the top 10 prospects. So tackle could be a need for us because, as we have talked about already, Garrett Bowles is on the last year of his current contract. He's 32. That could be a first-round pick option for us here in this first season. But defense also needs work, and there are a couple of linebackers and edge rushers here that could also be options for us. So we'll go over this more as we progress through this first season for sure. Our year is going to open on the road against the Seahawks. That's kind of a storied matchup, but has been less enticing the past couple of seasons, obviously, since Peyton Manning retired and since Russell Wilson left Seattle and then came to the Broncos for 1 or 2 kind of horrible seasons. And then we have our first game at Mile High against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we go back on the road to face the Buccaneers and Jets. And we don't really have too many tough games to open the year. really. These games could kind of be a toss-up for the most part, I think, for the Broncos. Until you face the Ravens and Chiefs in the middle of the year, we'll probably lose both of those games. We'll probably lose against the Falcons too, with Kirk Cousins now as their main guy under center. And then a really tough defense to play against in the Browns in Week 13. Our bye comes the week after that game. And then we have a couple of tough games to close the year against the Bengals and the Chiefs once again. So not a whole lot of tough games this year, but a lot of these games are against teams that are probably slightly better than we are currently. So we're probably going to have like a top 10 pick if I had to guess. And because I do expect a rebuild here, I am going to just commit to 4 wins. I can't promise that we're going to do any better than that. So 4 wins is the goal. That'll get us 8 staff points by year's end. Now we'll do it here, guys, in episode 1. We will see the Seahawks next time to see the debut of our new rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, who has yet to throw a touchdown in his career, including the preseason. Will he throw his first one in week 1, or will the Broncos once again have another really terrible offense? Find out next time here in this Denver Broncos rebuild. I will see you guys there for that week 1 matchup as we progress further through this year and really kick things off next time around. Please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and leave your feedback down below. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.